There's nothing I love more than authenticity, which is why I'm so excited about Salsa de la Viuda hot sauce, which has been on kitchen tables in Mexico since 1956. It will be available here in the U.S. for purchase later this year. In addition to livening up your food, it's Mexican-owned, it's woman-owned, and it's one of the only hot sauce brands to have 100% Mexican-sourced pepper mix. Salsa de la Viuda hot sauce will be available here in the United States to purchase on shelves later this year. Hey there, I'm Lezli Levine-Harvell. Welcome to Impolite Conversation, the podcast, curated by the Iconoclast Dinner Experience. I believe the best way to explore a topic in depth is to view it through multiple lenses. Join us as we explore race, culture, and societal issues through the lens of industry experts, writers, cultural critics, and HBCU students. Hello, everyone. It's officially holiday season. I love the holidays so much. It gives my family time to reconnect. Our two eldest daughters attend college in Atlanta. Of course, they go to Spelman. My mom lives in Florida. My brother lives in Charlotte. So between late November to early December is when my family gets a chance to reconnect. And it's just a very happy time in our house. And of course, the food. I love to cook, and having my mom and my daughters in the kitchen with me is always amazing. I love that. My husband is African American. I'm Jamaican. And our combined family, our table and traditions are a little bit different. For example, I grew up celebrating Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. And that's when all my parents' friends would come over to drink and socialize. You know, Caribbeans, they like to have a celebration. I cannot stress this enough. Lots and lots of food. And for me, I've always been interested in how other groups of people celebrate the holidays, particularly minorities within minorities. So today we are going to explore how Palestinian Christians celebrate the holidays. I am looking forward to exploring this with one of my faves, Iconoclast Dinner Culinary Honoree, Chef George Azar, who is coming to us live and direct from the D.
Yep.
George was born and raised in Detroit, actually Southwest Detroit. You grew up in Southwest Detroit, right? To be more precise, because I know how y'all get about your neighborhoods.
We very do.
He's worked in some of the most prestigious kitchens in the world, including a Noma residency, as well as Alinea. And for those of you who don't know, Noma is in Copenhagen and Alinea is Chicago. But you did your residency in Tulum, because every year Noma goes to Tulum.
It was just that year. It was that year they did it.
Okay. And then throughout George's extensive travels, he developed a love for Vietnamese food, and he opened Flowers of Vietnam in Detroit. And he is the son of Palestinian immigrants and was raised Christian. Hi, George. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Before we get into anything else, first, you're in Michigan.
Yep.
Today is November 17th.
Yep. And
you said that indoor dining has been suspended again.
Yep. As of Monday, yesterday, no more indoor dining. We could do outdoor dining, but I still don't really know how comfortable people feel with it. We built a really big patio that we then put a tent in and heated for the wintertime. And we just did it too. That's what sucked.
Because the tent counts as indoor.
No, the tent technically is outdoor. We ventilated it properly. It's still a safer option, but it's just every restaurant has spent a lot of money trying to winterize some dining. And then now it's just right back to not making any money.
So are there grants and things like that? I know in New Jersey, for example, we're small business owners. So I know that there are grants that come available. Are there grants and things like that you've been able to apply for and actually get, apart from the federal government stimulus?
Right. There is, just for some reason, I don't know why I never get them. I think we got one recently for $10,000. We still haven't received the money yet. But that's the only grant we ever got, was that one.
Just to clarify, so you were able to start indoor dining that last week of June, right?
I forgot. I think so. It sounds about right.
Yeah. So June, July, August, September, October. So maybe 5 months, 5.5 months.
About that, yeah. We never actually closed at all. I had a hunch that everyone's going to get shut down. I mean, it's inevitable. So we started planning on building a patio while there was no dining. And then we just pivoted to a more to-go friendly menu format.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. The
thing is, people do get tired of eating at home. I'm tired of it. I'm gonna tell you that right now. As somebody who,
Especially you love going up.
yes, it's like crazy. Listen, I know they said this is Fauci speaking that they're going to be deploying a vaccine before the end of the year. So I'm hoping like end of January, like we're starting to see some sort of difference. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. So in my opinion, I find that there's a homogenizing of Arabs and folks from the Middle East, much in the same way that Hispanics are, I think, generally homogenized because they share the language of Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a bit about, in some ways, culturally, how a Palestinian Muslim would differ from a Palestinian Christian?
For one thing is there's certain cultural celebratory things that are based on alcohol that we participate in that other Palestinian Muslims do not. So there are Palestinian Muslims that do drink alcohol, but culturally, these traditions are more ingrained in ours. It's not taboo. That's one thing. Second thing is church. We celebrate the same religious traditions as other Catholics. Well, I'm technically Greek Orthodox. Our church is like 3 hours long. The whole church is gilded in gold everywhere. But those are the two main things. It feels more Western than anything. So that's like two main things I feel like.
Do you eat pork?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Y'all are drinking the wine and eating the pork. That's
swine and wine, baby.
Okay.
Swine and wine.
So Jesus is your homeboy, so to speak. You're agnostic, but you were raised Greek Orthodox. You were raised Christian. Palestinians are an ethnic minority group, and the majority of Palestinians are Muslim.
Are Muslim.
Upwards of 80% are actually Muslim. So you fall into another minority group as a Christian.
Yeah, and I feel growing up, I felt like I wasn't Arabic enough for like most Muslim Arabs. Does that make sense? I felt like I was very Westernized because I celebrated the same way as kids that grew up here and are Americans. But I mean, just like they're not.
Well, Christianity feels Western. It's more right. Whereas Islam is more Eastern.
No one in my family has a hijab on. I also like probably speak better Spanish and Arabic because of my origins. So I've never felt Arabic enough for other Arabs, especially Muslim Arabs.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like veering off a little bit, but it's something that you said about hijab. So I know that hijab is obviously something that Muslims wear, but isn't hijab something that people would wear that live in the desert generally, like the women?
No, they would wear it out of respect for being in a Muslim country.
Got it.
From my understanding, it's not out of a form of function. It's out of a form of respect for the dominant religion. It's just culturally respectful.
So back home, do you have family members in Palestine now, or is everybody okay? So back home, the women who are Christian, would they wear hijab where they are? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's a small community. So if you are being seen, it's not strict. That's what was the problem with ISIS, right? Is that like ISIS was going around cutting your head off if you weren't abiding to Wahhabism. And so that's why I guess it's just temperamental depending on the region too. So if it's like a very strict Muslim country, then yeah. Like where my family's at, it's not that strict. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense, though. I mentioned that I'm Jamaican, but growing up in the New York City area, there was no shortage of Jamaican immigrants or just like music and food and celebrations and place where you can get your spices and your meat and all that. So there was a durability, I feel, of my ethnicity in my area, and I felt really connected to my culture. You mentioned maybe not feeling Arab enough for Arabs, but just generally speaking, in Southwest Detroit, were there other Palestinian Christians in your community?
No.
And did you feel like you didn't have that?
So it's funny. There was one family that was Palestinian that lived 2 blocks down from us, who I'm still friends with today, but they were Muslim. Other than that, so now Dearborn isn't too far away now. We have the highest population Arabs outside of the Middle East. So there was and then there wasn't that durability because getting to market for Arabic groceries was a 5-10 minute drive. However, walking distance in my like proper neighborhood, no, there wasn't. That's why I think I identify with so many other ethnicities and cultures as well as my own, or maybe even less than my own sometimes.
So in terms of religiosity, how did you practice Christianity? You mentioned you were raised Greek Orthodox.
Yep. So my mom was never the uber religious type. She used to tell me like, hey, look, As long as you're not out here being an asshole, being a piece of shit, you're fine. She like instilled a sense of practicality in religion. We would go to church, but it was more for a community. Like,
right.
Yeah, that was really it.
Is it typical that a Palestinian Christian would be going to a Greek Orthodox church? Was that just because of the church where you were? That's pretty typical?
That's actually a great question. So I don't think there are many like Roman Catholic, like Palestinian Christians. Most of them most like Palestinian Catholics I know are Greek Orthodox. The church is in Arabic and it's 3.5 hours long. It's real extra and gaudy and just extra and full of panache. So,
it's funny that you say that because the only time I've been to the Middle East is Dubai.
Okay.
And everything was over the top.
Of course.
Like from the time that I got on the plane at JFK is what I'm saying. Like, you know what I'm saying?
When did you go to Dubai?
So this was, let me see. That was the first year that the Burj Al Khalifa, we went for New Year's Eve.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Like we were there. And so it was the first year that the Burj Al Khalifa was finished. And so that's where they were doing the fireworks and all of that.
What did
but
you
just
fly
from the
over
time,
there?
Emirates.
What did you go airline?
Emirates.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. From the time. And so I was like, and every time we would fly to South Africa, we used to go there a lot. We only flew Emirates. It was just so like luxurious.
Extra. Yeah.
And I'm just like, is this an Arab thing to just like be extra?
Yeah.
Like,
it is though. It is. It's just like,
what
extra.
is that about?
I don't know. I realized that there's a lot of cultural similarities between Vietnamese folks and Arabic folks. Like when it comes to showing off and seeing who's got more money than the other, that's what we do best. I always thought it was so nauseating. It's hard to explain. It's like they look down
what are you talking about? Black people are like that. Throughout the diaspora. It don't matter if you African American, if you Jamaican, if you West African. Listen, I think at West African weddings, they spray them with money or baby shower, whatever.
No, we did the same shit. We literally, I never knew. That's so funny because I never knew. Growing up, I only been to Arabic weddings. And there's a point in a wedding where like the bride and groom will be dancing and people come up with money and they'll just literally throw money at them, making it rain.
Make it rain.
Yo, legit. I'm like, yo. So growing up, I'm like, hold up. I'm like, yo, nobody else does that at their wedding. That's only ours. Like, what? It's so funny. And then they'll like they'll make a money like rope and then they'll tie it around them. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. Yeah.
I love that. Listen, I love anything extra. I love it. So the Greek Orthodox Church, or as I've seen it, the Eastern Orthodox Church, apparently has a lot of holidays that are known as feasts. And so the Feast of the Resurrection of Jesus, called Pascha. Am I saying it properly?
I don't even know that.
Oh, yeah. Pascha, Pascha, which is Westerners call it Easter. In the Greek Orthodox Church, it's called Pascha. And they can even often differ on what day is celebrated as Easter.
Yeah, that's true.
And so the Eastern Orthodox Church, Pascha, or Easter, is the greatest of all holy days, and it's called the Feast of Feasts. And there are a group of 12 great feasts. Pascha is the most significant, and then there are 12 total. 8 of them are in honor of Jesus Christ, and the other 4 are dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Theotokos, does that sound familiar to you?
I've never even heard that, like about how there's like these feasts that separate the Eastern Orthodox, which Greek Orthodox, from other Catholicism practices. Like the only thing I thought that art was different is that our Easter and Palm Sunday are a week ahead from other Catholics. And then also we don't believe in the Pope. Yeah,
you have your own Pope.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have
right. Ethiopians are like that too.
Really?
They have their own Pope.
Yeah, we're like, we got our own shit.
Right.
Who's that white guy in the Vatican? You don't know who that is.
Right. Yep. Ethiopians have their own Pope.
Nah, that ain't for us.
Yeah, so apparently there are these 12 great feasts. And from what I was reading about Eastern Orthodox Church is that Easter sounds to be like a bigger deal than Christmas.
Yeah, and we eat lamb, a big lamb leg on Easter is what you have to eat.
Okay, so I'm curious, in your home, if you could rank level 1 to 10, where did Easter rank and where did Christmas rank?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like they'd be equally as important. If not, Easter would be more important. Me just looking back, Easter would be more people, it'd be a bigger deal because Christmas sometimes would be just like your immediate family, cousins and aunts. But then Easter, from looking back, I noticed that there's way more people there. And it is a bigger deal. And they make certain dishes for Easter. Christmas too, though. There's like one on Christmas that we always make.
So I'm curious, at your church, was it primarily Palestinian families or was it mostly Greek families?
Mostly Palestinian families.
Okay. I noticed you said Arabic. So would like Egyptian people be there too? Or is it, okay. So Palestinians and other Arabs. More impolite conversation in just a moment. The new HBO documentary Yusuf Hawkins, Storm Over Brooklyn, tells the story of Yusuf Hawkins, a black teenager who was murdered in 1989 by a group of young white men in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. His death and the official response to it sparked outrage in New York. The film, directed by Muta Ali Muhammad, explores the 30-year legacy of Yusuf's murder, and his family and friends reflect on the tragedy and the subsequent fight for justice that inspired and divided New York City. Stream it now on HBO Max. Visit hbomax.com to sign up for your 7-day free trial. What are some traditional meals prepared during, we're going to start with, because Easter was like a bigger deal. And it's funny because I was going to have this conversation thinking we were talking primarily about Christmas. Mm. But since Easter is a bigger deal in your culture and your religion.
Yeah. So we'll definitely do like a roasted leg of lamb with rice and pine nuts and ground meat. And then we eat it with yogurt and some mint. We also eat a dish called mensef. And I think it's actually Egyptian, but my mom would probably, if she was listening around, she's like, no, stupid. It's Jordanian. I think it is Jordanian.
Okay.
So we take like a cultured goat's milk and we make this soup and cook rice and lamb. And then this is what I remember the most is that they flip it over on this big old platter, the rice, and then they pour all the milk and pine nuts all over it with the lamb. And then everyone would stand around a table and you'd eat with your hands. That's the only time we'd ever do that, though. Even then, it's like a dying. I haven't seen anybody do that forever. And then you have like green onions that you'd eat with it too. Even at work, I try to do things that would make people interact with each other and with their food. And I think it might be because of that. Like, I used to have so much fun doing that shit where we're all just standing there with your cousins and the shit's too hot, so it's burning your hands and you're trying to eat it. I appreciate that form of dining because it feels like how it should be, where you're forcing people to integrate and also converse and have funny moments. And
I don't know if you know this, but are you eating the lamb because it's supposed to be significant, like Lamb of God type thing?
I don't know, actually.
All right.
I don't think
that's
so.
Okay.
Maybe historically, but that was never the conversation. Maybe my family didn't even know that's why. It just sometimes you just don't know, but probably.
Another thing, are you all doing the Easter Bunny and all that? Or your parents were like, oh no, we're not doing the Easter Bunny?
We would, just because I think they wanted us to fit in with America.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably the only reason. The kids are growing up as Americans.
Right.
So they don't want them to feel like they're out of place. They already do. So they want to be able to share the same tradition. So they're not confused when they're going to school or talking to their friends.
Like back home in Palestine, is there an Easter Bunny? Do they think there's an Easter Bunny?
I highly doubt it.
Okay. Okay.
I highly doubt it. They're worried
Okay.
about not getting their water shut off and whatnot, their electricity. Yeah.
So, and then for Christmas, obviously every family is different, but like just in general, like what would you be eating on Christmas?
So for sure, we would have grape leaves. Without a doubt, can't be Christmas dinner without someone making grape leaves. Maybe even multiple families making them because you have to roll each one by hand.
Okay.
So it takes a lot of labor. It's like, I feel like almost every culture has some kind of rolled like item on their dinner table for Christmas. Mexicans do tamales. There's like so many, because I think it's very laborious and so you get everyone together to make it. We make this rice and meat mixture that's spiced with like 7 spice, allspice. And then we roll it up in grape leaves and we cook them in a pressure cooker with chunks of lamb and tomatoes and squash. And then we, again, dump it over a big tray and we eat it with yogurt and mint.
So I need that recipe.
Yeah, I got you. You're going to be like, yo, this is too much for me to make. Like, each one by hand, because you got one person's going to eat about 60 of them. They're small. 60 might be a lot. I'd eat 60. And then
I'll eat 60.
The whole point is that everyone's going to take some home. Like,
okay.
Everyone. So you have to make enough for everyone to be able to take home. And my aunt, God bless her, she's in heaven now, but she was a gangster with it. Hers, it was like, you know how people like follow people on Twitter to see where their food truck's going to be at? And that's how her these were. Like, oh, bet, you got some? Okay. Like, how much did she make this time? Yeah, she lived, yeah.
Okay.
In my neighborhood, too. Yeah, it's my aunt.
So that sounds yummy. Is there anything else?
Not really.
Okay.
My mom used to make this like mint jello, but it didn't taste like mint, so I don't know why she would call it mint jello.
I feel like you said mint a lot. So mint is something that is like a common ingredient that
Very
you're
much,
using.
especially tea. Every Arabic family has mint growing in their backyard. And then every Arabic child has been sent out there to pick mint for tea when there's people over. Yeah, that's a fact.
That's interesting. I love to hear about stuff like that. So obviously Bethlehem is famous because Jesus was born there. Mm-hmm. It's also a Palestinian territory.
Yep.
So traditionally on Christmas Eve in Bethlehem, there's a parade through the town. There are bagpipe bands in the parade, which is a tradition left over from when the British Army occupied that area between 1920 and 1948. People also dress up as Santa Claus and give out sweets. And the streets and main square are decorated with lights. And then perhaps the most famous part of Christmas in Bethlehem is the church service of the Mass of the Nativity, which is held on Christmas Eve afternoon, evening, midnight in the Church of the Nativity, which is built over the place where it's traditionally thought that Jesus was born, which I thought was pretty dope. I was actually surprised about Santa Claus, though. I was expecting Christmas in Bethlehem to be a little bit, truer to form, perhaps the three wise men giving out sweets. How did you celebrate Christmas in your home? And was Santa bringing the gifts?
So one, we would go to night mass on church. And then they have a breakfast after church in the morning, after the mass. And then, yes, Santa Claus was bringing us gifts. And my mom did the whole like, oh, you see this red thread? You see this in the footprints? And she got me. But so that's because she wanted us to be somewhat westernized and not feel out of place, which I actually am thankful for, to be honest with you.
That makes sense, you growing up in the United States. But I have to admit, I was a little bit like, oh, so Santa, like the kids in Bethlehem think Santa, like in my mind, I was thinking that because they're actually at ground zero where Jesus was born, that it would be a little less Western. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Culture has infiltrated the world more than we think sometimes, I feel. You know what I mean?
There's an article that I was reading that was published by Vox Media in December of 2019. And I wasn't sure if you had family back, because sometimes with immigrant families, like everybody over the course of 20 years comes over, but you said that you have family back home in Palestine. And so I was reading this article. The name of the article is called "We Are Living in a Touristic Prison, Palestinians on Life in the Holy City of Bethlehem." As it relates to what I was talking about in terms of the parade and things like that, that usually happens every year. And the mayor of Bethlehem last year, he had said, we're expecting 1.4 million tourists.
What?
Yeah. And the number only includes pilgrimage groups and not individuals. And then he said that was a 20% increase over last year. Again, he's having this conversation in 2019. And because of that, the tourism, I'm assuming, helps the local economy. According to this article, it says experts say Israel's mushrooming settlements in the West Bank and its separation wall, which divides Bethlehem from Jerusalem, its historical sister city, have restricted access to the city and devastated local economy. And the head of the settlements monitoring department at the Applied Research Institute in Jerusalem, Suhail Khalila, says we are living in a touristic prison. Yes, we get lots of tourism, but for the Palestinian people, it's pretty much a prison. Also, it says that Israeli authorities had banned Christians in the Gaza Strip from entering Bethlehem and other cities in the West Bank during Christmas. And Israel said the decision was due to security reasons, where some Israeli groups, such as Gisha, said it was believed to design to consolidate the divide between the Gaza and the West Bank. It says that, and I don't know, and you don't have to comment on this if you don't know, but it says that today there are 23 settlements, which take up 8.1 square miles of the Bethlehem area, some 165,000 Israeli settlers, comprising about 1/3 of the total population in the West Bank, according to Khalile. And she said that 92% of Bethlehem's 210,000 Palestinians are confined to 13% of its total land.
Yep.
And they said that Bethlehem is known to have one of the highest rates of unemployment within the West Bank. The price of land and the cost of living has skyrocketed beyond imagination, but that's mostly because of tourism. The prices are good for tourists, but the people of Bethlehem are being suffocated. And so they are thinking of leaving. George Rishmawi, he's a tourism expert and executive director of Abraham's Path, a nonprofit that develops community-based tourism. He's saying that there's a lot of tourism, but there's no place for them to like breathe as people who live there. As it relates to your family, and again, you're growing up in the United States, and I know you're not an expert on this. I know you're not where does your family live in Palestine?
You know how they said that it's for security reasons as to why they separated or they consolidated? Well, So recently my pops was telling me that there's land that he inherited from his mother that he can't do anything with because the Israeli government said that, oh, you can't do anything with this because they need to occupy it for security reasons. Okay, so
like
you guys
eminent domain.
Right. That reasoning gets used over and over again as a blanket and a tactic. It's funny also that you said that they're thinking about leaving. So from what I understand, Palestinians with a Palestinian Authority passport, if you leave for a significant amount of time, you actually don't get to come back ever. So it almost feels like there's this whole like preconceived plan to have all these things in place to get to that where, yeah, you guys just can't just come back here. It's ours now. And also as being Palestinian, clearly there's going to be a bias, what I think, but it is what it is at the same time too.
So, for example, like Jamaicans, they tend to go like three places: United States, Canada, and England. When Palestinians are migrating, like you said, there was only one Palestinian in your neighborhood. I don't know if there were more in Dearborn.
There's more in Dearborn, but they usually go to New York, California, Texas, first Jordan, and then it's South America. New York and California are the two of the most. And then Texas is another one, but not Detroit.
One of the things I wanted to say, in the Eastern Orthodox Church, the 12 feasts, the first feast starts actually with the nativity of the Virgin Mary. And then, Christmas is a feast. Palm Sunday is a feast. Easter is a feast, with Easter being the most important. And then the last feast is actually the death of the Virgin Mary. So like the feasts start with the Virgin Mary, like her nativity, and then they end. So
really?
That's what, listen, according to what I was reading, yes, it's 12 feasts, 8 dedicated to Jesus Christ, 4 to the Virgin Mary. Did you celebrate all 12 of these feasts growing up?
No, not that I remember. No, I remember Palm Sunday, Easter, Christmas, Nativity. And maybe I do remember the one where the Virgin Mary, they would celebrate her death. Because we even do that for when our relatives die. After 40 days, we have a dinner feast in honor of the 40 days. So that's what that reminds me of. But I don't remember doing it for the Virgin Mary.
So I saw 40 days a lot. So are you saying the 40 days of like after a family member dies, is that an Arab thing or is that a Christian thing?
I think it's an Arab thing. Or maybe it's just like an Arab Greek Orthodox Catholic thing or whatever. But and then after that 40 days, like the family members, the close family members are like, you're supposed to stop wearing black. Because like for those first 40 days, you wear black every day. It's like your mourning. And then we have that 40-day feast. And then that's when you're supposed to start to reintegrate into natural life.
So when a family member dies, do you not have a big feast after the funeral?
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
Okay.
It's like legit too much food.
Okay. So you do that. And then after 40 days, you have another one.
Yep.
Okay. That's interesting.
I also don't know where the 40 number comes from. So
you know what? The 40 number, I'm thinking probably comes from the 40 days and 40 nights that Jesus was wandering the desert and being tempted by Satan.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a Catholic thing and not just for all Arabs that do that. Also, Muslim Arabs buried their dead immediately.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So for example, like in Jamaica, I mean, you don't really see it much here, In Jamaica, we have this thing called Nine Night, where you're basically feasting for 9 nights. And then you bury them on the 10th day.
Do you know where that historically originates from?
I have
Why?
no idea. I don't know. I'm assuming it's some sort of African retention, because that's not Christian.
That's
Totally not Christian. And it's a lot of food, like every single day. You're doing it for 9 nights. Because I remember the first time I went to a funeral in Jamaica, because you can't even tell the difference between a wedding reception in Jamaica and a funeral. I've read things where it's almost like you are giving the spirit a chance to like resurrect. And then if they don't do it by this time, it's okay, we can bury them.
Do you notice that almost every ethnicity, when it comes to death, it's not just simple and quick. We go extra. Right. It's extra. Like, and I'm talking about even just like Black Americans in our country. I'm talking about like cultures and ethnicities across the globe. That's what sucks about COVID, is that there's so many people that the ethnic origins and cultures that weren't able to fully grieve. Like, it was like a Zoom funeral. What the fuck are we talking about? Yeah. That is really the most disturbing part.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's crazy.
It's funny because, like I said, you know what? African Americans are so damn funny. So there was like this meme that was going around. There were like 10 things that Black people care about, but it was actually African Americans. They're like, who did the body? Because African Americans, it's like the funeral is like a whole, they need to look good.
Yes.
At their funeral.
And every neighborhood has their like iconic funeral homes that like, yeah, that's the go-to.
Yes.
On the east side, that's the go-to on the west side.
Yes, yeah, like that's 100%. The poppin' funeral home. Yes.
Yep, that's so real.
So this was such an interesting conversation. I feel like I learned a lot. I went into this like doing this research thinking we were going to talk primarily about Christmas, and then finding out that Easter is a bigger holiday. So, as you know, the podcast is curated by the Iconoclast dinner experience. And this is a question that we ask all of our guests. It's your last night on Earth. Where are you eating?
If the logistics weren't in question?
Yeah, no, logistics are not in question.
I probably would go back to Palestine because I've never been.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've been like very hesitant to go.
Okay. And why didn't you ever want to go to Palestine?
I think it would be a disturbing experience. Emotionally, from what my parents say, it's what I see in the news. It's Vic Mensa said something brilliant, that when he went there, he was brought to tears, and the many people that he was with were like, yo, this reminds me of Black oppression in America, but worse even. He's like, when I see these IDF soldiers like harassing these kids, it felt like I was back in Chicago watching myself, and it happened to me by CPD. I'm going to send you what he wrote. It's brilliant. And I found a new respect for Vic Mensa after he wrote that for the New York Times.
Thank you for listening to Impolite Conversation, the podcast, curated by the Iconoclast Dinner Experience. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Icon Dinner, and on the Iconoclast Dinner Experience Facebook page. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Hit us on socials or send us feedback at press@iconoclastdinner.com. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our podcast, and we'd also love it if you rated and reviewed us.